Morning, everyone, and welcome. We've got a couple more people arriving, so I'll just wait till we've got a few more people who have joined, and then we'll kick off. One more coming in. Okay, I will let everyone else come in as I work through. So if I do pause, it's just because there's a couple more people trickling through. So welcome everyone to the Marketing and Branding Fundamentals online session today. I'm very excited to put this together in line with New South Wales Small Business Month. I am not shy of doing a webinar, and this month I think is super crucial for small businesses. And I love to give back, and I love to share knowledge around the amazing businesses that we get to work with. And then today, is really putting together a session with some tips and tricks around some kind of key marketing and branding principles, what to think about, when you're running different campaigns and when you're trying to reach your target audience and ultimately grow your sales and your business. So I hope that you enjoyed today's session and that you leave with some great tips that you can apply straight away to your business. And if you'd like to have a call with me following this session, you can book in and do that as well. Okay, just got a couple more. Great. So just to provide a bit of an overview of how today's session will run, I'm going to be providing a bit of an overview around your brand identity and some of the key things that matters around brand consistency when you're creating content and you're advertising your business. I'm going to go into defining who your target audience is and some key principles around that. And then some tips on how to boost your sales and how to think about who that you're actually talking to, and to make sure that you've got all the decision makers so that you can make that sales process as seamless as possible. We'll also have an opportunity for a Q&A where you can pop in the chat box, and feel free to add questions throughout. I'll be able to look in the chat box and answer those at the end of the session. So I just put a little slide here about why Small Business Month matters in the marketing realm. So Small Business Month is a perfect time to pause and reflect on how you're showing up in the market. It's been a very busy year, and anyone else, after a long weekend, we're already on the 9th of October today. So it is hard to feel, that we're going at such a pace. And so I think it's a really crucial time to stop and reflect and to pause around what we're doing. And that there is a huge opportunity to reset and to reassess a few things coming into the end of the year. If your business is in retail sales, or it's got Black Friday coming up and there's some end of year sales, and so thinking about campaigns around that. It could also be potentially seasonal campaigns. We've got clients who are in mortgage and lending, and so spring and talking to their customers around home loans and what's happening in the market at the moment, super topical. Or your client might be in finance. There's been lots of tax changes and aged care changes, regulatory changes. So thinking about what's happening in this time of year, I would say that there's a huge opportunity to still reassess the type of content that you're putting out, that it's relevant to your target audience and it's creating really great impact. Just put a comment here to say that marketing isn't about selling, it's about storytelling, it's about community, and it's about long-term visibility of your business. So use this month to invest and to help your business stand out. Okay, so a little bit about Excelerate Marketing. So we are 5 years old now. I have an amazing team that work with me here in Sydney, sitting in our office today, which is awesome. We're at 60 Martin Place in Sydney. We do work with clients all over. So we have clients in Melbourne and Queensland, some clients in Adelaide as well. So we're really proud of the businesses that we get to work with. And we are a full service digital marketing agency. We also prioritize the strategy that goes along with all the different campaigns that we do for clients. So what I'm going to give you a taste of today is some of those core principles that we apply to our client strategy in order to get the best results. We are passionate about those strategies, and everything is really customized to our client and to their needs. But there are definitely some principles and some learnings that we have along the way of, all the businesses we have worked with and continue to work with about what's working best for them. It might be email marketing, it might be around their social media or their ads. So I'll share some of those key wins with you today. We're a big believer that digital marketing is more about generating traffic and sales. It's about those interactions with your business and longevity of those relationships, and ultimately creating a truly memorable customer experience. These are just a bit of an overview around what we do on a day-to-day. We are pretty busy from everything from social media, email marketing. We do full website builds and redesigns. We do SEO, personal branding. We also have a lot of clients that need video from time to time or a new headshot. So basically the go-to marketing agency for our clients for all of these things. Everywhere your brand, is touching an online presence, or it's an advertisement, or a customer communication, we're really responsible for making sure that that looks and works as effectively as possible. We've also got one here, award writing. So we do support our clients with award submissions and have been quite successful of that over the years. And it's a great element for brand visibility for clients. A little bit about me. So I have been in marketing for 10 years. I started out I started working for a company called Rate City in the financial comparison space, and remained in finance really for the remainder of my time in marketing before starting Excelerate Marketing. I am a problem solver. I love a challenge, and I think marketing really is that at its core. You want to talk to more people, you want to grow your business. That is something that we want to help you solve with great marketing, great strategy, and great sales tactics. So we work with a variety of clients, largely across professional services and financial services industries. But there's some other businesses that we help with as well in different campaigns. So I do love what I do, and am thankful to have a great team around me supporting what we do every day. And it doesn't feel like work when you are passionate about what you do. And I think, in today's market, there has been a lot of change with AI and different systems. And so, we are innovators at our core and have to continually look to innovate and adapt our processes to make sure that we're helping our clients be as relevant and as effective as possible. So I'm just going to kick off with a couple of statistics. I've chosen LinkedIn because we do work with our clients. Probably 80% of our clients would have some type of LinkedIn presence, if not from their business page, but definitely a personal page. So just going to include some statistics just to give you a bit of an idea around how much some of these platforms are used, or lack thereof sometimes. So LinkedIn has just over 1.2 billion members globally. This has gone up probably 10%, I would say, over the last 2 years when I had last presented this slide. So, the adoption of these platforms is increasing, but they're not always used as effectively as they can be. There are 67 million companies on LinkedIn, but less than 1% actually post consistently. Companies with complete and active LinkedIn pages get 5 times more page views than those that don't. Bill Gates is currently the most followed person, closely followed by Richard Branson. And 30% of a company's engagement come from its employees. It's quite interesting. And the last one to leave you with is companies that post weekly or on LinkedIn get 2 times higher engagement rate. So the reason I have these slides in here is to give you an idea of the adoption of these platforms. And the point of this really is to just encourage the use and access of whichever platform that you're on. So it doesn't have to necessarily be LinkedIn, but I'm a big believer that if you're on a platform, that you show up regularly, that you post consistently, that you get your team to engage, that you get your network to engage with that platform. There's nothing worse than seeing a channel or a page and there's absolutely no engagement. And sometimes it doesn't have to be lots of engagement. Sometimes just people view your post or your article and they read it, and there doesn't have to be a necessary call to action, even a like or a comment or a click, to a different landing page. Sometimes the action is just visibility of your brand. So it's important to balance, I would say, the utilization of these platforms and the posting of content. I had a conversation just the other day of someone who said, I was told I just had to show up every day. And, these posts aren't getting any engagement on it. And what that does is it creates a lot of noise, which then when you need to tell an important message, you've lost your audience. And so balancing the content frequency with the effectiveness of that is super important to track. And this goes across all channels, be that email, social media, because when you need to cut through and get action from that person, you don't want to have created some fatigue around that communication. You want to create awareness, and I'll touch on that in a minute of why brand awareness and consistency is so important. But you definitely don't want to fatigue that individual by just sharing content, because the chance of doing that is not just diluting your brand, but it's also potentially creating a negative association with the type of content that you're sharing. It might be the wrong content because you're so focused on volume rather than quality that your message isn't as it should be. So I hope you found those statistics interesting. Now I'm going to share just a couple of hidden secrets from what I would say are some core principles around marketing and branding. So the first is consistency is key. Now I've used McDonald's here, the Golden Arches, which are quite iconic, especially anyone on a road trip, and maybe you've got hungry kids in the back. And this symbol is a representation of what you're going to get by being there. And yes, it changes a little bit from a global scale, but largely if you're in that state, and you're driving along and you're going in between states, as I say, Sydney to Queensland on a road trip, you know that if you stop, you're going to get a pretty consistent experience and a pretty consistent quality of product every single time you go here. Now, I'm not saying that the quality of the product is great. It serves a purpose. But my point is that there is an iconic representation and recall of what this brand offers. And so that consistency, firstly, it's the M. There's also McCafe, so they've got some sub brands as well, but they infiltrate that brand across many different channels. And there's popular slogans and jingles, and all it does is it keeps this level of consistency. So at the point of when you need it, then it's there. So potentially McDonald's have advertised the night before, and then you go on the road trip and the next day you see it and there's that consistency. So it's not always when you're advertised and when you get a message that's when you need to take action on something. So I'm sure we all get advertisements, let's just say, shopping, and then we go to the shops and we see something, and then that's at that point we're triggered to buy it. So I'll talk a little later around the actual marketing funnel itself and nurturing people through that process, because you want to create some awareness around your brand and consideration around the choices, but then we ultimately want to push them to a purchase of your product or of your service. And so that creates, really loyal customers, but that is achieved through really consistent branding. We want to prioritize brand consistency. So in relation to your brand, there's a couple of things that I recommend putting in place, if not already, or revisiting. The first is a mission statement. So this could be mission statement and or vision statement. But what it is, it's an anchoring statement to not just provide visibility to potentially your customers, but also to your team. And a mission statement is really important in understanding where you're at. And our mission statement for Excelerate Marketing has evolved over the years as our services have evolved and our team has evolved, which is why I'm suggesting to revisit it if you don't have one, or put one in place. And so what it tells your customers is that you have a clear vision, that they are the type of person that you want to help. And it puts, some structure and I guess confidence around what your brand is seeking to achieve and do, and who is it seeking to help, and in which way. The second thing is brand guidelines. And this is sometimes a nice to have, but I can tell you it's super crucial, especially as marketers. We love brands that have this. It allows that consistency of what we're doing across creating great content for them. It also means that brand guidelines can also be not just around colors, it can also be around your tone of voice. It can also be around what icons that you use and how different imagery is used. And so your brand guidelines allow your brand to be amplified across many platforms very consistently. When you think about Apple, you think about Nike, you think about some of the big global retail brands, there is consistency around what they do and who they help. Let's use Red Bull as an example as well. They have been very big over the years, incorporating athletes and doing all types of stunts, from rock dives and, with bikes and cars. And, they're known as this, adventure energy, is kind of crazy world of just testing the limits. And their brand guidelines around that, there would be certain industries or brands or sports or areas they wouldn't go into. And so your brand guidelines very soon start to become a bit of an overarching brand framework and architecture of what you want to do and what you want to be seen doing and what you don't want to be seen doing. So it starts with your colors and typography and your tone of voice, and then it moves to a more broader thinking around what do we want our brand seen as and where do we want it seen as well. So consistencies with colors and fonts are super important. A good use of your logo and variations. Just something to note on social media. You do have your brand as part of the post. So you don't always have to put your logo on everything. I think using your logo sparingly sometimes speaks more to the credibility of the message, and you can let that shine through rather than having to just promote your brand all the time. Using people is great, and individuals of your business. And so your logo could be used in its full sense. It might be a slogan, it might be the favicon, that you use on your website. It can be variations. But I would say, think about the context of which you're using it, and think about the audience as well. If they've seen your brand before, if it's the first time, and that will help guide you to understand when and where you need to use your logo. Keep a consistent schedule of content. So, this is going back to this repetition and not knowing at what point that person is actually going to make a decision about purchasing your product or service. So it may just be that one email that you send that then triggers them to think about what they need to do, taking that next step. So consistency is important. You can track and measure your engagement rates and your open rates of your email to determine how well received that content is. So it's important to be consistent and to have that planned ahead. And we will be sending something out following this, so keep an eye out for it. We've got a content calendar to help you plan some of your content, and also a Q4 checklist. And the last point is just creating and sharing relevant content for your brand and audience. So thinking about what's going to be relevant to them. What do they care about hearing about? And if you're not sure, doing a poll or doing a survey or selecting a pool of your audience to understand what their preference is, I think the risk is that sometimes we assume and that is never a good basis to work from. Always try and use data where possible, or to get qualitative or quantitative data around preference. You can also look at different trends in market, especially for Google. You can have a look at high search volumes on certain phrases to see what people are looking for in market. And those topics will help you determine what type of content you should share as well. Just a statistic here, that 71% of consumers say that they're more likely to buy a product or service from a brand they recognize. So that's pretty important. So a strong brand creates loyalty and trust. So I've touched on, your brand guidelines. We talked about different use of colors. So really looking at your brand's identity, having that consistency across all channels, and thinking about how you're different from your competitors. How you're different from your competitors speaks to a few things. It could be part of your people, part of your service, could be your price point, could be the way that you deliver what you do, or the quality of the product of what you offer. And so that's really important to tell people, because they are often comparing and considering different options. And so it's up to you as the controller of that message to ensure that they get the right message so that they do choose your product or brand. So one way that we've done this recently for a client actually is that we did do a comparison image side by side to show that what they're getting with our client versus other offerings in the market. And that visual representation of the inclusions is a really great way to, you're not being disrespectful to other companies. Everyone's entitled to be competitive in the market. You're just saying how what you offer is more superior. And I think sometimes being able to try and put that into a visual representation, be that a checklist or be that a side-by-side comparison. Superannuation companies do this all the time, and it is very effective. So thinking about why are you different, and then how do you want to communicate that? Is it in a written format? Is it a visual? Is it a video? By showing, compare the pair, and who is going to be better off by using your business. So the second tip is that good content creates emotional equity. And so this is a shot here of one of our clients, an accounting client in Sydney that we did some filming with. And got a couple of shots here across some LinkedIn posts over the years. And something that you'll notice in all of these posts is that firstly, there's no logo in the post itself. And this is my point before of having your brand. Your brand is already part of that post. It just sits at the top of the post for LinkedIn and Instagram and Facebook. But what you do see in here is there is some representation of colors. So in one of the posts, there is green, which is aligned with the client's brand. There's a 6. They're celebrating 6 years in business. So you can create some subtlety in the messages just by using some colors and some of the, the assets and prompts to help display that message. And then on the right-hand side, you can see that they're at some type of awards night. There's an award there that he's holding, which he was actually presenting on the evening. And so, there's a bit of a mix in here, but what you see more than anything is people. And it's the people that make up those businesses, that's the face of those businesses, that form the culture, that really is the standout. And these are the posts that do very well. So we've got anything from 1,500 to 7,000 impressions, very, very high engagement rates from these posts. We're talking 20 to 50% engagement rate. And it's just showing that people are people. And that is sometimes the human element that misses from people's brands. And it can be quite hard for founders to be able to sometimes be the face of their brand. And we spoke about this with a client yesterday. They didn't want to be anywhere in the marketing. Oh no, you should get this gentleman to be the face of the brand and business, which is fine, as long as there's a story there. So, we're not for pressuring anyone to show up on social media and have their brand and their personal brand associated together. But it is really important that people see a human element of your business in some form, be that an ambassador, or be that a director, or be that a team member, or team members as a collective. So just something to think about when creating content and what you share in that content. The last tip is around telling the story. So storytelling is what we do day in and day out as marketers. It's crucial for marketing success because it helps you connect emotionally with your audience. It helps create that memorable brand narrative. And I'll share a couple of case studies and tips. So, what's the first tip really is to start weaving your core values into your story. Now we have a client in North Sydney, and they have a couple of key values that the Big Four actually love and have tried to pinch before. And they actually interweave these values into their yearly awards for their team members. They interweave them into marketing campaigns and collateral and content. And it talks to who they serve and why they are different to their competitors. So they use their values in their marketing, and that's what starts to differentiate them from anyone else. And it's about creating that story, and it's about being memorable. And this photo here actually is a gentleman called Kurek Ashley, and I met him at a conference in Hamilton Island earlier this year that I was also speaking at. And alongside me is Delia, who works at Profit Master and is also a client of ours. And this was just a really great photo following Kurek's session. He handed out some copies of his book, and I shared this on my LinkedIn and to my network. And that was the story that, as a marketer, I go to different events. I was invited to go to Hamilton Island to the conference. I spoke at it. I met Kurek. I hung out with Delia. And, together we had a really great time and made some great connections. And that's the story. I'm not saying come engage me and my marketing services and come speak to my team. There's actually no call to action needed for that post, rather than just telling a story of what I've done and where I was. And so in conjunction with that, I do share articles and I do share tips, and I do promote webinars and online sessions like this for people to join and hear more about what we do. And then they can make a decision about whether that's something that interests them, that they would like some more support with. And so storytelling really is crucial for success, and thinking about your individual story and what you want to share in your message. And then what's the appropriate platform to do that? Thinking about your target audience. Okay, so I've got a couple of areas here to talk through. So I've run through some marketing and branding tips. Now I want to talk about your audience and your funnel and what type of channels to think about. And so when we talk about your target audience, it's important to understand that your audience will change and your audience will evolve. But at your core, you tend to know what is the problem that you're solving and who is that problem related to. And so your audience might have some different segments. You might have slightly different service offerings to different segments. But you ultimately know the psychographics, the needs, and the behaviors of these individuals. The second thing, after you determine your audience, is understanding what do you want to communicate to them. So defining your message, your value proposition, this is where your storytelling comes into place. And where appropriate, what is that call to action? The last element is choosing the right channels. So this might be social media, it might be email, it might be SMS marketing, it might be an event and some bigger branding and marketing. And so what is the right channel? And very, very often we find that there's a core problem in someone's marketing strategy. And it's because they know their audience and they have the channel, but the message is wrong. Or they know the message, they have the channel, but the audience is wrong. Start to get what I'm piecing together. So it's all three of these in conjunction with each other to make your marketing successful. Let's use paid ads, for example. You have a great audience segmentation or you're retargeting and you know who you're targeting. You have a definitive audience. You're like, it might be 1,000, 10,000 people. But you've created some structure around that and you know exactly who you're looking to target. But then your message and the creative isn't representative of your business and isn't strong enough. There's no hook, there's no cut through and noise in the market. The creative's off. It doesn't then matter where you're putting that message. It's never going to end up in that right action being taken. The same as the wrong channel. You know, the channel of the audience do come hand in hand. And so first and foremost, we want to think about what our problem is that we're looking to solve and who is that will benefit from what we're offering. Then how do you communicate that and where are you going to promote it? And so, you know, these are some fundamentals. I'll give some examples on each. And the first is, you know, your audience and your channels. And so this slide here talks to social media, for example, Instagram and TikTok, you know, have a younger demographic. And, you know, it could be, both of these channels are being used more and more for research than they are for just entertainment. And so there's a real opportunity for some businesses. These aren't appropriate channels for all businesses, but there's a real opportunity to create some great and engaging content in a different way to a potentially different audience, or finding your audience on here within a certain space. LinkedIn for professionals and for companies, engagement can be super effective. The actual personal page of someone's LinkedIn will get more engagement than a company page, but using them in conjunction with each other and playing off the back of both of them can also be really effective. Facebook community for building, and you know, it can be some older demographics, but Facebook communities are really effective. And then also, if you have a Meta account and a Facebook account, then you also have the opportunity to run sponsored ads in that channel. Email marketing is a great way to have personalized, targeted campaigns. Whilst we're talking about social media, you don't have an ownership of those audiences. Whereas email marketing, you know, when you have the opt-in, you have that person's permission to message them. So there is a level of buy-in from that individual when they opt in to receive that marketing communication. It can also be very targeted, you know, depending on, you know, how often. Some people check their social media more than their emails. But, you know, email marketing is a more direct approach with communications. It also allows you to include more information. So when you think about everything an email can include, from different links and resources, it can be a very comprehensive form of email marketing. And so when you're thinking about both the targeting aspect, but then also the actual information that you can include. It also is a great opportunity to nurture leads and build that loyalty. And there's some great CRM and platforms out there that allow you to build that nurturing and automation in quite effectively. So it's low touch from you and can be very impactful. What I would say to not get in the trap of when you do nurture your customers is to make sure that you're still measuring the engagement of that. And then also, if you're personalizing it, that you have those details correct. There's nothing worse than getting an email with the wrong name or a last name. So if you're going to do something, do it well. think through the process, and where possible, automate to nurture your leads, because that will be most effective for consistency, but also just to give you some time back. And then the last area to kind of talk through is community engagement. And so you could look to attend or host local events. This could be anything from networking. We're looking at sponsorships for one of our clients. And so that's a great way to be involved in the community and to put their brand out there in some new areas. You might want to partner with local influencers in hospitality. This is really big. And so there's lots of, businesses and cafes and restaurants and entertainment, where they get influencers to experience and then endorse that product and brand. And so community engagement really is about building trust through authenticity and involvement, and looking at different ways and different channels to be able to get cut through and to get, ultimately it's validation, and it is that endorsement, and sometimes it's social proof. And so there's different ways that you can reach your audience. What I would recommend as my advice is, firstly, go back to who your audience is. Where do they show up? What are they going to be consuming, where your brand is going to be relevant for them to see? And then what is that message that you need to convey to them? And track and measure that and evolve and adapt that over time. This is an example of a beautiful client of ours who is runs a dispute law firm, and co-founds that with Luke Buchanan, and this is Simone Reeves. And together they have created this practice, and they have a team behind them as well, who are not just exceptional at what they do, but also great communicators and connectors. And that's really what's led their business to be as successful as it is today. And this is largely to their involvement in the community, from everything, they do attend events and host events. These awards are off the back of recognition of what they've done and who they've helped and the success of the cases that they've had. And so, some of these posts here, there is no call to action. There is no download this and speak to us. This is purely from a brand and a personal brand play. And, that post there in the middle, was an award that Simone won, and this was shared from her personal page. And it's great to show that recognition. You do want to do it sparingly. I mean, if you win lots of awards, then share all of those wins. But create diversity in your content and create that story around what you're doing, because they work very, very hard, and they don't go to an awards night every week. These happen a couple of times a year where they are successful as being a finalist or a winner of an award. But the point here around their brand and their message is that they're highly recognized within the industry by what they do. And that is really just the point of these communications, around acknowledgement of that they're experts in their space. And you can see in there, the word litigation, dispute resolution, which are services that they offer. And we do know off the back of this, because we are their marketing agency, that they have had some successful new partner connections. So it's not always direct clients. Sometimes it's referral partners. And they have had some success from direct events and from the content shared on social media afterwards, which prompts those conversations. Okay, some suggestions now about how to boost your sales through smart marketing. So I'm not sure how many of you have seen this funnel before. It does look a little bit funny, tofu, mofu, bofu. But basically all of this looks to demonstrate is that your business has a funnel when people come into it. At the top of the funnel is around awareness. So top of funnel, that's really what tofu stands for. So top of funnel, middle of funnel, and bottom of funnel. So at the top of your funnel, you want to think about the awareness of your brand. So these are certain channels and communications and social posts, and someone may be aware, but they don't have a lot of recognition, and there's definitely isn't a build-up of consistency as of yet. So when we're talking top of funnel, we're talking about leads, we're talking about impressions, talking about likes, might be a webinar registration. And so they're not yet really in the funnel of your business, ready to make a decision and purchase because they're still figuring out what you do. And so it's important to create content which is storytelling and brand related, which isn't as what I would say as potentially as complex or as targeted as content further down the funnel, because they're still figuring out who you are and what you do. And as you move further down the funnel, that's when you actually start to be able to provide more bespoke content and tailored content and structured content to help them frame up what they need to make a decision about to engage you. And so we move into the middle of the funnel, then we're looking at the actual, maybe there's an ebook or there's a form, or you've actually shook hands with someone at an event. They're now in that middle of the funnel. They're aware of your brand, they kind of know what you do. And now they've moved away from just awareness. Now they're actually in consideration of purchasing or engaging you and your service. And at the bottom of the funnel, we report on the leads, the qualified leads, and then we ultimately want to convert them to be a customer and then a future advocate. And so thinking about the content that you're creating, your paid ads, all top of funnel. Whilst you might have a really great target audience, that audience is still relatively cold and doesn't have a strong association with your brand. And top of funnel, you want to create a diversity of content across a diversity of channels. When you move into the middle of the funnel, this is where you're going to have conversations and meetings and email marketing, and they're closer to the point of deciding to become a customer. And the bottom of the funnel, you don't want to be sending them top of funnel awareness content. It's not bad for them to see it if they're now following your social media or if they've subscribed to your newsletter. That's okay. But now you want to talk to them like they're about to be a customer, not that they're a prospect. So the tone of what you talk to, as well as the content of what you share, should change across the top of the funnel, the middle of the funnel, and the bottom of the funnel. And so when we're talking about boosting your sales, have a think about, am I just creating content at the top of the funnel? Or am I creating or selling the wrong content at the wrong stage where that person's on the journey? And so if you're providing them too much information, let's just say you've got a full capability statement and presentation around what you do and the intricacies of around how it's going to help them. It's lots of statistics. If you have that too high up in the process, you're probably going to overwhelm that person. So the phrase of bring them along the journey speaks very much to this, and understanding what content that you're sharing at what point, and is it inspiring the right action that you want them to take. The other great tip and slide, putting my sales hat on for a moment, are these BANT principles, which have come up quite regularly for clients. And if you're not aware of them, I'll just cover them off quite quickly. Basically, this talks to when you're going into a meeting and a conversation with a client, and let's talk, say service-based clients. Let's say you're a financial planner and you want to get that customer to engage your business. You've got to make sure that that individual that you're speaking to has the right budget for what service that you're offering. If they don't have any budget or the right budget, they're not going to be suitable. The second is you make sure you're engaging that person who has the decision-making power. You might be speaking to the one spouse, but the other spouse is the one that has the power. So if you're a financial planner and you're speaking to a husband and wife or a couple or whoever it may be, you want to make sure if you need both to sign off, that they both have authority, that they're both in those meetings and conversation. Or in the corporate space, that if there's 3 directors, you have all 3 directors, or the one that has the authority to sign off is in that meeting. Otherwise, again, you're unlikely to be able to actually close that customer. The other area is need. So do they really need what you're offering? Is it a genuine fix for the problem that they have? Is it a perfect match? If they don't need it, they're not going to be able to proceed. And the last is the timeline. They might have the right budget. You might have everyone in the room who has the right authority. They really need it, but in 2026. And so that's not to say that they're not qualified, but then you start to determine the likeliness of that deal or that customer proceeding if the timeline doesn't match. And so you want to understand all of these things in conjunction with each other. And this starts to give you a really solid understanding of if you're talking to the right person and you're in the right room and there's the right budget and all of the magic's going to happen together. Because if not, then you're at risk of wasting their time and your time. So it's really important to qualify your customers first. It's important to make sure you're talking to the right people. But then when you do have the right individual, do they have the right budget? Do they have the right authority? Is that need genuine? And is the timeline suitable for what you're offering? So I'm going to move into some recap and takeaways. And so I encourage everyone to start putting some questions in the chat. If you do have any questions, we'll have about 5-10 minutes at the end to answer those. And so just a bit of an overview, we only have an hour. So I have tried to jam pack as much content in here as possible. And so to recap, what I'd like to share with you is around branding. And so it's trust and consistency of recognition. So your brand is how your business is perceived. It defines your identity, it builds trust, and it ensures that your business is recognizable. Your marketing is your strategy to reach the right people. It's the method that you use to promote your brand and reach your audience with the right message at the right time. And so together, branding and marketing will help drive the growth in your business. Strong branding attracts and smart marketing converts. So small businesses will grow when this is in sync. And this is what we find is that the left hand needs to work with the right hand, and that you need to be able to create and craft your marketing with your sales and your target audience in mind. But it's very important to make sure that the messages you're putting out in market are genuine for your business, be able to differentiate yourself amongst competitors, and be able to get cut through and get the outcomes that you're looking for. So a couple of things that we're going to be emailing over later today. The first is a Q4 marketing checklist. The second is a content calendar plan for you to start thinking about your content. We're already in October, but never too late to start. And the last is a complimentary discovery call. If anyone would like to book in some time with me, time is limited in October. I'll probably only have a couple of slots available for this. So I do encourage, if you are interested, to do it today, because time is of the essence. Today is Small Business Month this month. So if you are thinking about action, you've already joined today's session to learn about some marketing and branding principles. If you'd like to talk about applying that in your business, I'd be more than happy to chat with you about that. So I'm going to include a QR code here. So if you are on your desktop, I'll leave this up for a moment, and you can take a screenshot of this, and you can book a session straight in my calendar and pick a time you'd like to meet. Leave that there for one more minute. See, I've got a couple of questions. Yes. I'll move to the question slide. Great. All right, so I'm going to move into some questions now. I've got one already, so please put your messages in the box. But for anyone who starts to drop off and doesn't have a question but does want to book a meeting, we'll be sending these slides through. I also sent over an email this morning. You have my details, you know where I am. So thank you for joining, and I'm going to be staying on for an extra 5-10 minutes to answer any questions. So this first one, does your business look after PR? So we do branding and marketing. And so digital marketing principles is what we do first and foremost. And we do help some of our clients with press releases. We do award writing. We do help clients secure podcasts. We do help run events and speaking opportunities. So we're not your traditional PR agency, but a lot of what we do around getting great amplification and brand awareness is super important for clients. So if you are interested from a marketing standpoint around great communications and some more information, be happy to chat to you. Thank you, Beatrice. You're very welcome. I'm glad you enjoyed it. A couple more minutes. Thank you, Sharon. Thank you for joining. Thanks, Tara. Thank you, Erica. Great. Is it okay to move up and down the funnel on social media and email blasts? Linda, yes, absolutely. So you don't know always necessarily at what point your customer is ready to make that purchase. So that was what we were talking about, the timing of your communications. I would look at creating an ongoing campaign for your marketing on social media. And then for social media, if you're looking to do a blast, looking at maybe a paid ad campaign, something topical, maybe you're running an offer, I'm not sure what your business is. And so you can do that in sprints and then run a sprint and then test it and then look to iterate that campaign. The same as email blasts. Again, I would do that in a structured way with what's the intention that you want to get from that email? What's the outcome you want to achieve? I got an email, I think it was from a retail brand, and it said, "Don't miss out." Hooked me in, I opened it, and it was sign up for their 11th birthday sale. And so, they're hooking you in and they're dropping information that they're trying to get you to take an action at that point. So I'm not ready to purchase, but they've got my awareness. They've caught my interest. So I hope that helps. All right. Well, I'll be reaching out to you all today. Thank you, Linda. Thank you so much. Look forward to chatting with you guys at different stages. Please follow us on social media. We've got always tips and articles that we're sharing around different marketing and branding. Thank you, Sandra. Thank you for joining. So hope to stay connected with you, and I hope that you very much enjoyed today's session. And I hope you enjoy the rest of Small Business Month, and that some of these principles help your growth and marketing over the next month and into 2026.
Will we be able to get access to the slides?
Thank you, everyone.